Good evening. My name is Jay Rosenzweig, and I'm thrilled to be facilitating tonight's discussion with our special guests, Amie Engerbretson and Van Jones. I want to thank the Alliance for Climate Transition and their organizers for asking me to serve as your moderator. It's really an honor. And it's fitting that this be held at the Edward Kennedy Institute, honoring an individual who spent a long and productive time in the Senate and never really shied away from issues that are of critical importance. As a social impact entrepreneur and a leadership strategist, I've spent my career investing in and advising companies that are really at the leading edge, cutting edge, including in clean energy and climate. And without a doubt, the most critical issue of our time is climate change. It is long past time to be debating this issue. It's a stark reality. The threat is existential, and the evidence mounts daily, from record temperatures month after month to wildfires in the American West, in Australia, and in my own native Canada. So without further ado, I'll do a brief intro of the guests, and we'll dive into it. Amie Engerbretson is a world-renowned professional skier, film director, and climate advocate, known for her work with organizations like Protect Our Winters. She's passionate about making outdoor recreation more inclusive and environmentally sustainable. Her vision of a culture of inclusion and consciousness when it comes to the environment is really inspiring. So thank you, Amie.
Thanks, Jay.
And our next guest needs no introduction, but I'll offer a brief one in any case. Van Jones is a celebrated commentator, a best-selling author, a leading voice on environmental justice and green jobs. His work with the Obama administration and founding of multiple organizations dedicated to social change have made a real lasting impact. Van is one of the most knowledgeable, insightful, clear-headed, and heart-centered people I've ever met. So let's give it up for Amie and Van. Van, let me start with you. The environment is sometimes seen as an elitist issue rather than one belonging to working people. And I say this because I see unions not necessarily coming out against climate and climate action, but certainly cautious and focused on preserving jobs. And polls show a large population of workers value current jobs over predicted so-called green jobs. They may not be climate deniers, but their priority is economic security here and now. So how do we change those attitudes?
Well, first I just want to say I'm really glad to be here. I want to just acknowledge I do have a personal problem, which is I have at my house 2 small, unemployed and ungrateful people. And they're the reason I am committed to this issue. They're going to grow up on a different planet than I grew up on. The planet I was born on, there was never a year when the North Pole was hotter than the Sahara Desert. Never happened. Certainly, if that had happened, it would be the same year that Texas froze. That year is called 2021. 2021, the North Pole was hotter than the Sahara Desert, and Texas froze. That's not the planet I grew up on. That's the planet my children are going to grow up on. And that gets my attention. There are going to be some people who will rationally vote against us because their immediate self-interest will require them to do so. I don't think that's the main problem. That's actually a relatively small number of people. what you're actually seeing is increasingly rural voters in the United States are increasingly panicked about climate. And because they're seeing it. We're not talking to them enough. But there is a constituency of rural voters that if we were clear that we had solutions for them, they would join us. A lot of the sequestration that we want to happen for the soils in a rational carbon market, farmers would be happy to do less damage to the soil, have better farming techniques, and get paid to bring food to us, but to bring carbon out of the atmosphere. There are coalitions available to us, but we miss them. And Senator Markey, who's been my mentor, left, but I want to thank him. How did I even get into climate stuff? Somebody had to tell me I was a climate activist. I didn't even know I was a climate activist. I was a racial justice activist in Oakland, California, trying to get kids out of jail and into jobs in California in the early 2000s. And it turned out we had passed all these bills in California, clean energy bills, climate bills, and to support the solar industry. And we had companies ready to go. We had consumers that were ordering the solar panels, and no solar panels were going up. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, because it turns out solar panels don't put themselves up. And nobody had thought through the workforce development and job training. And I had a moment. I'm trying to get these kids out of jail and into jobs, and I said, hold on a second. This is the most important work that needs to be done. Repowering America clean and green. And I've got these kids who most need work, standing on street corners in Oakland, in front of my house, getting on my nerves. And I said, well, what if we could take the kids who most need work and let them do the work that most needs to be done, fight pollution and poverty at the same time, and get these kids from in front of my house, getting in trouble, put them on top of my house, putting up solar panels. And that's where the Green Jobs Corps came from in Oakland. We got $120,000 from the Oakland City Council. We had 17 kids, and somebody took a picture. And a young lady who had just become Speaker of the House named Nancy Pelosi in 2007 saw the picture. And she said, whoever those folks are, I want them to come with me to Washington, D.C. And she took me by the hand to Washington, D.C. I was straight out of the grassroots activist scene in Oakland. We wound up in Washington, D.C., met Senator Markey and others, and people were so stunned that we had broken out of that elitist bubble and we're creating pathways out of poverty, green pathways out of poverty for kids that people had written off. And we said, look, if you guys are environmentalists, it's nice to meet you. You don't think you have any throwaway resources, we agree with you. No throwaway species, we agree with you. But no throwaway children or neighborhoods either. Why don't we join forces? And later that year, a guy named George W. Bush was so excited by Senator Markey and Pelosi getting around us, he signed the Green Jobs Act of 2007. I wrote a book about it the next year called The Green Collar Economy. A guy named Barack Obama read the book. And the next year, he brought me to the White House. Now I'm not running a $120,000 program. I'm helping to run an $80 billion interagency project. That's what happens when we get out of these little bubbles and we recognize that the best, you know what people need? They need more work, they need more wealth and better health. And the best pathway to more work, better health, and more wealth is a green economy, hands down. Hands down. So,
Yeah.
I think we gotta let the people who don't believe us, don't agree with it, or are scared, vote against us. Love them anyway. Love them anyway. And when we take that attitude, that you're not stupid, you're not an idiot, you're not a denier, you're not an asshole, you might be scared. I'm scared of stuff too. Take the vote. And then afterwards, we're gonna come and help you. Afterwards, we're gonna take the asthma inhaler out of your little girl's pocket. We're gonna come and help you. And when we show up with a heart of service, and a heart of love and care, no matter who you voted for, that's going to have the biggest impact on the long run anyway.
I hear you. Amen. Talking about coalitions, Amie, you mentioned to me in our discussions the concept of the outdoor state. So I want to learn more about the outdoor state. But as well, related to that, you referenced statistics that show the economic value of outdoor recreation. And I think that's really important. Outdoor recreation in the U.S. has so many benefits, and you're talking about economic value, which exceeds, according to your statistics, mining and chemical production and utilities and many other industries. So tell me about the significance of all of that and tie it into the outdoor state that you talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So the concept of the outdoor state comes from this organization that Jay mentioned that I'm a part of called Protect Our Winters. And Protect Our Winters is this nonprofit that is organizing outdoor lovers everywhere around protecting our climate, protecting our planet, protecting our playgrounds is what we say. Obviously, the Northeast is a huge outdoor hub. Raise your hand in this room if you love to be outside in any capacity. You're part of the outdoor state. My contribution to the outdoor state is as a professional skier, and I'm on the Athlete Alliance at Protect Our Winters. They have over 300 professional athletes in sports varying from skiing, snowboarding, climbing. We just added mountain biking. We're adding water, kayak, and they help us kind of like, again, how did I get here as a professional skier? They help us as athletes see our role as being leaders in the community and empowering us to do so. Speaking of being scared, I was very terrified. I see climate very directly being a professional skier. I've had the ability to travel the world and see the mountain ranges of the world. It's the best part of my job. And I've had the also tragedy of watching them change drastically and seeing the mountains. I'm from Lake Tahoe, California, seeing the winters and mountains and seasons change so drastically where I live, not to mention the wildfires. But I was always really scared to kind of speak up and get involved. I thought I wasn't worthy. Like, what is a professional skier gonna do about saving the planet? And I had a lot of intimidation. I was afraid I wasn't going to be perfect and all these things. And Protect Our Winters was this place where they taught me so much and empowered me to use my voice and showed the potential for leadership in my community. And one thing that kind of like blew my mind and kind of this journey to advocacy that I had is when they told me about this thing called the outdoor state. And right now it stands, the outdoor state, if you were to round up every person in the US alone that participates in outdoor rec, you get a number of about 175 million people. It's a huge group. It's obviously bigger than any state in the union, or certainly any swing state. But to put that number into perspective, the NRA has about 4.3 million active members. So we like to think of this coalition of these crazy passionate people that go out into the mountains and they ski in the rain, or you guys out here ski in the ice, and they go camping, and you're used to kind of doing these like crazy hard things. And what if we could harness that passion that these outdoor enthusiasts have, and rather than being apathetic and saying like, oh, keep your politics, off the trailhead, off the chairlift, which by the way we don't have the luxury of doing anymore. And what if we take that passion and turn it into purpose to protect these things that we're all so passionate about, I could think that skiing's frivolous, but skiing is my ethos for being. It's where my soul is alive. It's where I draw energy to do anything in this world. And so the outdoor state is really cool. And so when I realized that not only was I part of a community that was so big, I was leader, potentially in that community, at least in the snow space, and people looked to me for, what skis to buy and what to wear, but also maybe how to carry myself in that community. And then kind of doubled down when I found out how big the industry of the outdoor rec is. And so it's a $1.1 trillion industry. It attributes 5 million jobs to our economy. And there's actually some even more specific kind of data in there. As of 2021, the outdoor recreation economy was contributing $887 billion to the US GDP. That same year, the extraction sector of the fossil fuel industry was contributing $336 billion, and the pharmaceutical industry was contributing around $420 billion. And I was like, hold up, I'm part of a community that's twice as big economically than the fossil fuel industry, like the big bad fossil fuel industry. And it was like this huge aha moment where I knew I cared about the environment and I cared about protecting our planet, and I was really scared of climate change, and I know that people in my community were too, but I don't think anybody in the outdoor space, and certainly a professional skier, never saw myself as someone that could do anything about it. And so I think when you look at, our hope, our mission, our passion at POW is to turn the outdoor state into a political juggernaut, of those, political organizations we know of, and we don't see ourselves that way. And one of the biggest things is about unity. The outdoor state is actually made up of, roughly 30% Democrats, 30% Republicans, and 20% independents or undecided that we know of. And so it's not that everybody in our community votes a certain way. But our hope is that this idea of like the literal common ground that we all go out and recreate on could be powerful enough to create that unity we need to unify this outdoor state, to really drive powerful change that we need to protect all the things that we love to do,
What a unifying opportunity. I'm glad you jumped in with your advocacy. That's amazing. And we got to get Canadians involved too. We got plenty of snow up in Canada.
There's
Plenty
POW
of skiing.
Canada. They're there.
Amazing, amazing. Van, the Biden administration recently placed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, and Vice President Harris, in the debate, confirmed her adjusted position as regards the issue of fracking. Are both parties, to varying degrees, putting the environment on the back burner? What's your take? What's your assessment?
Look, the Democratic Party has moderated from where we were in 2020. It's not just Kamala Harris. In fact, the fact that we picked Biden over any number of people to his left gave a sense of where our actual voters are. With regard to Vice President Harris's position on fracking, it's kind of foolish. The conversation about where she is, she was anti-fracking when the party was. The party's really not, but we're not for a particular set of reasons. For us, natural gas is a weapon against Putin. I think people forget that. There's a geopolitical dimension to this, which is that when Putin invaded Ukraine and we had to build a coalition, Putin said he was going to cut off all gas to Europe and freeze Europeans in their beds if Europe stood with Ukraine and the United States. And the United States became the number one, well, I guess now number two, but very major exporter of liquefied natural gas to Europe. We were able to do that because of fracking. And so I think sometimes we forget this is a multi-dimensional game here. And part of the transition to a clean, green economy is hopefully a transition to a better world. So I think Kamala, like most of the party, has moderated. I think the other thing that's happened to us is that in places like California, where I am, a lot of ideas we had just turned out not to be right. We thought we could build enough solar in California to shut down our nuclear power plant, and we weren't able to. And Gavin Newsom had to do a big U-turn there and keep our nuclear power plant going. We thought we could accommodate a bunch of electric vehicles on our grid in California. Luckily, the sales have slowed down a little bit, but if they hadn't, we'd have had brownouts across the state. So this is real stuff. This is real stuff. And I think that the responsibilities of governing, both in California and for the Biden administration, has caused us to moderate. That said, I'm proud to be in a party that has 0% climate deniers and understands the importance of maintaining the gains that we have. Senator Markey earlier was talking to some of us. He pulled us off to the side and talking about the incredible progress that has been made, the huge investments that have been made. He said, we've got a climate corps now in the United States. The Peace Corps is 4,000. The Climate Corps is now 20,000 people, and it's mandated that half of those people have to be from difficult backgrounds and circumstances. So again, ratcheting up these kind of green pathways to prosperity, a green bank with $20 to $30 billion in it. You guys know more about that than I do. But again, a big mandate that a lot of that money goes to communities that have been left out. So we can criticize at the edges things that look like retrenchment or accommodations to geopolitics or global trade. But fundamentally, the United States is moving in the right direction, possibly too slowly, but moving in the right direction, moderating where we have to, taking into account consumer and voter and other demands. It's not a dictatorship, it is a democracy. But I voted for Kamala Harris as district attorney when me and her and Gavin were kids running around San Francisco politics. I voted for her for attorney general. I voted for her for Senate. I voted for her for vice president. And I will be very proud to vote for her for president of the United States of America.
Amie, you alluded to, as a skier, the alarming observations you've made in terms of the environment. You see it firsthand in terms of the conditions on the hills, et cetera. I mean, those in the Northeast, including here in New England, have seen firsthand the effects of climate change, be it coastal erosion in places like Plum Island and Cape Cod in Massachusetts, or shortened ski seasons in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. In 2022, for the first time in history, in Ottawa at our Rideau Canal Skateway, it wasn't open a couple of years ago, and it was only open for a scant 3 days last year. So the subtext, I guess, is something we've talked about in the previous points that we've made. If we want to save the backcountry, we must decarbonize the front country. So from your perspective, how great is the threat to winter sports, and what can be done to protect our winter?
Yeah. I mean, the threat is huge. A recent scientific report out of California said that California could be facing snowless winters by 2030. That's only 2
Crazy.
years after whoever's president next leaves office. It's so dire. And yes, as a winter sports professional and lover, it's easy for me to get wrapped up in the losing my winters. And obviously the issue around climate is so much bigger than that. It is what I see, and it's what people that aren't in the mountains every day don't have the chance to see. So part of what my work and my job is to share what I'm seeing and get others, with me to do so. But I think that it kind of comes back again to what I was saying earlier in the ways I like to remind people talking about this is, yes, we all need to care that winters are going away in all parts of the world and what the greater planet implications of that are. But I think we've been talking for a long time about glaciers melting and polar bears dying, and nobody seems to care. So I like to change it back to kind of what I was saying earlier and talk about the financial implications of it. The 5 million jobs that are on the line, the trickle-down economics, think of the trickle-down economics of, rural New England if the ski industry goes away, which we're looking at, it's already changing drastically. And I think that that's a way to kind of unify people. Again, I wish everybody cared that the glaciers were melting and the polar vortex is splitting and the Arctic is hotter than the Sahara Desert. But I know that everybody cares about money. And it is an economic issue we face. It's a huge industry. And then the trickle-down economics of that are huge. And so I think that that's just a way, again, to kind of shift that focus to try to unify and bring everybody on board. It's, to me, yes, it is about all of these kind of really existential humanity issues that then affect, I want my kids one day to be able to ski. I do, and that's selfish. That's part of my why. But I think that my job is to find the why for everybody in my community, which again comes back to money and comes back to that future.
I'd like to ask both of you, what gives you hope, if anything, in the fight against climate change? And are there any emerging trends, technologies, movements that give you cause for optimism?
I mean, I have a lot of hope because 15 years ago when I was a black dude talking about this stuff, I was weird. The first time I met Michelle Obama, I had just gotten the appointment to be Obama's so-called green job czar, clean energy advisor. And I go to the White House, and I'm so proud and happy. And all the new appointees are there, and we're getting to shake hands with the president and shake hands with the first lady. And she goes, "Well, what are you doing for us?" And I said, "I'm your clean energy advisor." She said, "What?" I said, "I'm your clean energy advisor." She goes, "You're an environmentalist?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "But you black." And we laughed and laughed because 15 years ago it was kind of an Al Gore and polar bear thing, and now it's not. And the reason I worry less about trying to get all the people who don't agree to change their mind is all the people who do agree haven't been organized yet. All the people who get it and who want something better haven't been talked to, invited, hugged on, loved on, and included. And so we have a lot of work to do at a heart level and at a human level. I have a lot of hope. I don't know if we're going to get there or not, but you know what? Nobody who's done anything new on the front end. And I would tell you this, if you're an investor, my only criticism of you is you're not rich enough yet. If you're an entrepreneur, my only criticism of you is you don't have enough clients yet. If you're a politician, my criticism is you don't have enough donors and voters yet. But there is a Green Growth Alliance that's waiting to be built. We've got some of it built, but this can be and should be the biggest and most hopeful movement in the world, because there's a place here for everybody. There's a place here for rural folks. There's a place here for urban folks. There's a place here for scientists. There's a place here for investors. There's a place here for labor unions. There's a place here for everybody. And it's the only movement like that in the world, that if you're gonna change it all, well, damn it, change it all. Change it all. We need each other. And so when I think about, again, these ungrateful people who live in my house, I'm not gonna be here forever. I was born in '68, so I'll be 56 tomorrow, which is great. Yeah. Everybody in my high school didn't make it to 56. You know what I'm talking about. And so the chance of me being here in 56 more years, unless Elon Musk turns me into a cyborg, not very high. But my children, God willing, will be here in 56 years. And I want them to live in a fantastic society. I want them to live on a great planet. I want them to live knowing that so much is possible because we prove that to them, and we prove that to them for them. And I just want to say to each individual person here, don't underestimate your impact. That's the key to it. You individually can make a choice tomorrow to include somebody, to ask somebody to stretch just a little bit. I'm sitting here talking to you guys because literally we had 17 kids who needed a job. And there was somebody sitting on that city council who said, you know what, let's give these kids $120,000. That person didn't know that it was going to wind up creating a model for the United States of America that George W. Bush would sign off on, but it did. Everybody every day has that choice. And the difference between a subculture and a movement, don't get me preaching, The difference between a subculture and a movement has to be underscored. I didn't say green elite culture. I didn't say if you don't eat kale, I can't talk to you. That's a subculture where you're trying to exclude people. I'm sure you got some subcultures in this. Are you really a surfboarder? Are you really a skier? Are you really a skateboarder? Or are you one of those Tony Hawk sellouts? We build these subcultures, and then we try to throw people out. We try to exclude people. We look for heretics. That's what subcultures are. You got a lot of that on the left, a lot of left subcultures, that if you say the wrong word or the wrong thing, they want to yell at you, throw you out. If you said something wrong 15 years ago on Twitter, they want to throw you out. That's not a movement. That's a subculture, policing for perfection. We don't need that. We need a movement. A movement wants to grow every day. A movement is not looking for heretics to throw out. They're looking for converts to bring in. They're not looking for people to call out. They're looking for people to call in and to call up. And you have that opportunity every day. You have that opportunity every day. And that's where the hope comes from. That's where the hope comes from.
Amie, what say you? Tell me if you have hope.
Yeah, I'm hopeful now after that. I do have a lot of hope. And I heard a very interesting quote a couple years ago that I've kind of lived and breathed by lately, that pessimism is lazy.
That's right.
And I think, coming from a pretty hardcore mountain background and looking at people, like when you're going out into the outdoors, you're not lazy. So we just don't have the luxury of being pessimistic. We're not lazy people, we're not pessimistic. Beyond that, I think that what gives me hope is kind of similar to elaborate on your kind of idea of the individual. I think what hampered my hope for a long time was my own insecurity and how wrapped up I was in my own imperfection and my own hypocrisy when it came to speaking up about climate, or even making it kind of like something that I wore on my heart very visibly. Is I was really wrapped up, and now I now know that part of the reason I feel so hypocritical and worried about my own individual carbon footprint is because the fossil fuel industry paid a lot of money to make sure that I felt that way, to make sure that we all feel that way. And I think that seeing that so much of that guilt and where all of that kind of separation comes in is actually the consort of something evil gives me a lot of hope, because I feel like I was at this really great summit with POW last week in Bozeman, and one of the speakers, Bill McKibben, he had this great kind of ending quote that I was like, yes, that's it. Where the greatest thing you can do as an individual, right? We're all individuals. We're also concerned about our individual impact, our individual vote, all of these things. The best thing you can do as an individual is be less of an individual and join a movement that then has the momentum to create the massive change that we need. And I think that the idea of the collective is where I really find hope. And again, that's, me coming from my little world in the ski world, and then that's part of the bigger world in the outdoor world. My job is to sow that hope and call those people in and create this coalition that's this massive movement of so many individuals joining together. But I think it's all of our responsibility to do that within whatever our circle is, our sphere, and whatever fear, there's a lot of fear. As a professional big mountain skier, people ask me all the time, aren't you so scared standing on top of a line in Alaska? Or they actually ask me, how are you not scared? And the answer to that question is, I am literally terrified. Every day of my living the dream job, standing on top of lines, I'm literally gripped with fear. But it's something I love, and it's something that's really important to me. And so I have this skill of being really scared, but doing things anyway. And I think that that's something that people that come from the outdoors, but every walk of life, we all manage fear all the time. And I think we all have a lot of fear of calling someone in and getting scared of calling them in the wrong way or saying the wrong thing, or somebody pointing a finger at you because you drive this kind of car, or you flew here for a vacation. But it's about kind of setting that fear down or holding space for it, but being scared and knowing that what we face is important enough and we're all passionate enough that we can be scared and do it anyway and take that step to bring people in. And we're so many individuals that we need to band together. And I just think that this idea of unity is huge for me. And I think I just go back to the saying of pessimism is lazy, and I'm just not doing it.
Amazing. I think our time is up. I could go on for hours.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, go. Absolutely.
One thing we don't talk enough about is just energy efficiency, especially for people who have houses. And some people don't have houses, but those of us who are blessed to. Like, we talk a lot about, fancy stuff and wind farms and solar, and I'm all for it. But you know what? That energy efficiency dollar is a miraculous dollar. If you focus just on that, you can find a young person who doesn't have a job and say, look, we're going to give you a job caulking up folks' houses, putting in more energy efficient appliances. That dollar just cut unemployment. When that young person walks across the street and goes to grandmama's house and starts doing all that work, that same dollar that cut unemployment also cut her energy bill. And because her energy bill got cut and she's wasting less energy, down the street there's a power plant that has to work less hard. So you just cut pollution with that same dollar. And then when you cut that pollution, that means that there's less health problems. So that same dollar that cut unemployment and cut grandmama's energy bill and cut pollution just took, somebody agrees with me, also cut the asthma rate. And then you say, well, how much does it cost? Well, hold on a second. We spend a lot of time talking about how much it costs. You got to look at it. How much did you save, though? How much did you save? Green economics don't just focus on what you spent. It also focuses on what you saved. You just saved money. You just saved despair. You just saved crime. You just saved lives. You just saved hospital bills. Just energy efficiency, just giving regular folks the opportunity to go and make grandmama's house better is a green pathway to poverty and prosperity. This movement that we're building is a miracle-making movement. You got to understand that. There is room in here for everybody to benefit, everybody. And I just want to say to you, I am really, really proud to be in this Commonwealth or whatever the hell you got. The state, is it a state? What is this?
The Edward Kennedy Institute for the...
I'm proud to be here with you guys because this is a leader. You are leading. And to lead means to go first. And sometimes when you go first, it's hard. Sometimes when you go first, there's pushback. Sometimes when you go first, there's internal disagreement. But the reason you have all that stuff is because you have a place that you're trying to take us to. And I'm just proud to be on the train with you.
Thank you so much, my friend. And we're incrementally in these actions doing one more saving, and that's incrementally saving our planet. I want to thank ACT for bringing us together in common cause for what I say is the most important and most existential issue of our time. And please give it up for these two inspirational people, Van Jones and Amie Engerbretson. Thank you very, very much.